What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best builds in Avowed. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both leveling and endgame. And then finally we will go over the companions, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what consumable should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. This setup's main focus is to scale Ignite from our attacks and target big enemy groups to then set them on fire and explode. One of the most powerful skills that we have in our arsenal is the critical strike, clear out, and the charge, which I'll do incredible amount of single target damage with no element penalty but have a bit of a cooldown. So the fire effect makes the most out of this by effectively extending the damage of these hits many times over, in order to kill big targets like tanky rare monsters and many more. In this guide I will show you the best abilities, the skill tree, full gear, even what weapon and companion should you use, and much more. So first up, let's move over to the background. The War Hero, in my opinion, is the best background for a fighter build, as it provides a strong foundation for key physical attributes. Next we have attributes, and this will play another big role in your build as they will enhance our melee combat powers and survivability. The key attributes for our build is Might, Constitution, and Resolve. You also want to allocate the most points on the Might to increase physical damage output, which is very crucial for maximizing melee attack effectiveness. Then Constitution attribute will allow you to enhance health and resilience, allowing fighters to deal additional damage in combat. Then focusing on Resolve will allow us to boost maximum stamina and improve recovery from near-death experiences. And then finally, Dexterity is just our backup stat because you don't really need fast attacks in combat. Several good totems can also provide attribute enhancements, and you will gain attribute points when you progress and gain experience as your character levels up. Next up we have our skills, and the Shield Bash, Clear Out, and Into the Fray are the best skills for our fighter build. The Clear Out is an active skill within the fighter class that allows your character to perform a powerful spinning attack. It allows you to attack all nearby enemies with your equipped melee weapon. This ability will enable you to control crowds and deal substantial AoE damage. Then Into Fray is another active ability that allows you to control the battlefield by pulling enemies towards you. This skill is useful for engaging distant targets or just to focus one target from a group of enemies. Then the Shield Bash will allow you to interrupt enemy attacks, and it will prevent them from executing their abilities or combos. Overall, these skills will offer the perfect balance between defense and offense in particular fights. So let's quickly take a look at our skill tree for each level. The most important skills at low levels are the Charge, Shield Bash, Steady Aim, and Survivalist. So we invest skill points to gain the skills that can keep you alive in the initial stage of the game. Passive skills will be used to increase damage or survivability, while active skills will require essence and you won't be able to use them right away because of their cost. Then in the mid levels you want to ensure to increase your damage potential, so choose the skills that enhance AoE damage, allowing you to dominate the enemies coming in your path. Skills like the Retribution rank 2 will allow you to deal 100% of the original damage that you received. A Flurry of Blows at rank 1 will also allow you to gain maximum speed and stamina regeneration, allowing for more flexibility to your character. And then finally, from level 21 and up, you want to increase AoE damage potential with Clear Out. At this stage we can even use a two-handed or a one-handed weapon and have great survivability and damage at the same time. And also don't forget that you need to take 3 points into the Survivalist skill tree, which is in the Ranger category, because once unlocked you can then craft advanced food and buffs that drastically increase your survivability, damage, and regeneration. Next we have our gear. The best thing about equipment is that this is not required for our build to work. However, if you can get these specific items, then you will only become more powerful as of the result. So for armor, we're using the Berserker scale, which gives us 25% damage and 50% critical hit damage, while below 30% maximum health. Then for gloves, we got the Migrant's Force, that gives us plus 15% fire damage. Then for shoes, we're using the Sojourn Boots, for plus 40 maximum stamina. Then for trinket, we got the Cartograph's Companion, which gives us plus 1 dexterity and plus 2 perception. And then for our first ring, we're using the Chidden Band that gives us minus 5% damage from the beast. While on the second one, we got the Sigil of the Arcane that gives us plus 20% ability cast speed and minus 20% ability essence cost. And then as far as weapons go, the main weapon for our firefighter build is the Last Light of Day, which gives us additional 10% bonus fire damage. And for offhand, we can use a second weapon or a shield. I prefer to use a shield for more defense, but this is up to you. But if you choose the dual sword route, then my recommendation is just to go with the exceptional sword that deals massive damage and enemies high armor takes 30% less damage. And then finally, for our second weapon, here you can pick whatever you want. For our fighter, I personally like to go with the musket or the bow, but both are viable options and will work great together for aggroing monsters, and just in some situations you need that little bit of range damage. However, as you can tell, most of our fighting will happen in melee range, and we will just want to smash through enemies in close quarters. Next we have companions. In my opinion, the Gaiata and Marius are the best companions for the fighter build, because Gaiata can heal while Marius can root, discover treasure and burst single targets. Each one of these companions will bring unique abilities and backgrounds to your journey. And now finally, let's quickly go over the general gameplay and tips and tricks that will help you in your combat as the fighter. So like I mentioned, we will use companions like Gaiata and Marius to complement our build. Gaiata will provide healing and support spells, while Marius will offer ranged attacks and crowd control. For our main character, we will use skills like the Charge, Shield Bash and Clear Out to deal massive damage while also increasing defense for our character. Mastering the main combat techniques like the parry, dodge and perfect block are essential to enhance your combat effectiveness. You will also want to combine your fighter skills with the range skills for a multi-class playstyle. On top of this, we can even use grenades to deal damage over time. The main idea behind our build is just to set enemies on fire, so then when we start our fights we want to hit as many enemies as possible, so then all of them would start burning, while then in the meantime we focus on one enemy at a time and just quickly burst them down. Then if we ever get overwhelmed by ranged enemies, then we want to either way run quickly behind the cover or just to use a shield while we wait for the enemies to reach us. This setup's main focus is to scale our pistol's damage from our attacks and target big enemy groups to then charge our bullets and explode. One of the most powerful skills that we have in our arsenal is the Grimoire Mastery, a Flurry of Blows, Survivalist and Arcane Seal. And on top of this, we are going to be combining our Wizard's Ice and Fire skills together to then create devastating spellcasting combos. So in this guide, I will show you the best abilities, the skill tree, full gear, even what weapon and companion should you use, and much more. So first up, let's move over to the background. The Arcane Scholar is the best background for a wizard build, as it provides a strong foundation for boosting our magical skills. Next we have attributes, and these will play a big role in our build, as they will enhance our combat power and survivability. The key attribute for our build is Intellect, Perception and Resolve. By leveling up Intellect, it will enhance our spellcasting effectiveness, including the spell range, duration and damage. Then Perception on the other hand will increase our accuracy with spells and allow you to hit targets more reliably. And lastly, increasing Resolve allows you to better resist crowd control effects. Several consumables can also provide attribute enhancements, and you will also gain attribute points when you progress and gain experience as your character levels up. Next up we have our skills. The best abilities for our wizard is the Grimoire Mastery, a Flurry of Blows, Survivalist and Arcane Seal. Grimoire Mastery is a passive ability within the wizard class that enhances your spellcasting abilities by unlocking higher level Grimoire spells. Then the Flurry of Blows will allow for a rapid succession of the attacks, increasing damage output and much more. Then the Survivalist will provide you the ability to cook at a campfire with overpowered consumables. And finally, Arcane Seal will increase the essence regeneration and casting efficiency. It will conjure a seal at your feet that lasts for 30 seconds when activated. And overall, each one of these skills is useful during the gameplay, so choosing the best one is crucial as it makes the difference between winning or losing a fight. So let's quickly take a look at our skill tree. The most important skills at low levels are the minor missiles, blast, finesse and steady aim. So we want to invest skill points to gain the skills that can keep you alive in the initial stages of the game. Overall, passive skills are used to increase the damage or survivability, while our active skills will require essence and you can't use them right away because of their cost. Then in the mid levels, you want to ensure to increase your damage potential, so choose the skills that enhance our AoE damage and buff our attacks. My personal favorite skill here is the Survivalist at rank 2, as it allows you to unlock recipes for strong healing foods. Then also the Grimoire Mastery at rank 2 is another great skill to unlock, because it will give you level 15 Grimoire spells. And then finally from level 21 and up you want to increase elemental damage and survivability. At this stage we can even use a two-handed or a one-handed weapon and have great survivability and damage at the same time. And finally, don't forget that you need to take 3 points into the survivalist skill tree, which is in the ranger category. Because once unlocked, you can then craft advanced food and buffs that drastically increase our survivability, damage and regeneration. Next we have gear. The best thing about equipment is that it's not required for our build to work. However, if you can get these specific pieces, then you will only become more powerful. So for armor, we are using the Lava Forged Plate that gives us plus 45% resistance to fire accumulation. Then for hands we're using the Gloves of the Strangler with plus 15% sneak attack damage. Then for shoes we're going with the Sojourn Boots, which increases your health restoration from all sources by 5%. Then next we have a trinket called Cartograph Companion, which gives us plus 1 dexterity and plus 2 perception. And then for the first ring we got the Sigil of the Arcane that gives us plus 20% ability cost and minus 20% ability essence cost. While for the second one we have the Ring of the Founder with plus 10% damage against targets with full HP. And then as far as weapons go, the main weapon for our wizard build is the Fair Play pistol, but pretty much any other musket or pistol will work as well. This one has 2 enhancements like the Recompose, that when killing an enemy will restore 5% of your maximum health and 25% of your maximum stamina, while the Vengeful Shot will taunt and gain plus 100% critical hit chance against enemies that are attacked by one of your companions. And then finally for our second weapon, here you can pick whatever you want. For my wizard I personally like to go with a second musket or a bow, but both are viable options and will work great for aggroing monsters, and in just some situations you need that little bit of extra damage. However, as you can tell, our main goal is just to smash through the enemies by using the wizard spells and one-shotting them with our pistol. Next we have companions. In my opinion, the Gaiata and Marius are the best companions for a wizard build, because Gaiata can heal while Marius can root, discover treasure and burst single targets. Each one of these companions will bring unique abilities and backgrounds to your journey. And now finally, let's quickly go over the general gameplay and tips and tricks that will help you in your combat as the wizard. So as I mentioned, we want to use companions like the Gaiata and Marius to complement our build. Gaiata will provide healing and support spells, while Marius will offer ranged attacks and crowd control. Mastering combat techniques is very essential to enhance our combat effectiveness. It is best to combine wizard with the ranger skills for a multi-class playstyle. I personally also like to use the grenades to deal damage over time. And overall, the main goal is to invest into the skills like the Grimoire Mastery, a Flurry of Blows, Survivalist and Arcane Seal, to deal devastating damage and increase our survivability in hard fights. The main idea behind our build is just to one-shot our enemies by charging our weapons, to then use critical hits on our targets. If we are fighting weak melee enemies, then this will be very easy to do, because by the time they reach you, they are already finished. However, if you are fighting elites or ranged enemies, then this is where our wizard skills will come into play. This setup is known as the stealth build, as it will emphasize on burst damage while being hidden. With this build, we will focus on the ranged attacks with our bow, because the passive damage rewards from the unaware enemies will give you the highest damage possible in the game. Moreover, you can stealth on demand with the skill Shadowing Beyond, which will increase this even further. But then after we've been found, our playstyle will switch up, and now it is structured around specializing in dealing damage, almost exclusively by spamming our utilities and using the bow for range, and sword for close quarters. All of this is based on our skill tree and gear, which will boost our damage insanely high, and give us the ability to delete trash enemies in split seconds. In this guide, I will show you the best abilities, the skill tree, full gear, even what weapon and companion should you use, and much more. So first up, let's move over to the background. The Vanguard Scout is the best background for the Ranger build, as it provides a strong foundation for the stealth, especially in the early game. Next we have attributes, and these will play a big role in our build, as they will enhance our melee combat powers and survivability. The key attribute for our build is Perception and Might, because they both will increase our overall damage. Perception especially will increase the critical hit chance and max range. Thus you can remain undetected at further ranges with a higher burst potential. And then Might is helpful because it will boost your overall damage and the carrying capacity. Lastly, we want to also invest some points into Dexterity for movement and attack speed. And then finally we can also boost our Intelligence and Resolve with the permanent bonuses, by utilizing companions or through food and consumables. You will also gain attribute points when you progress and gain experience as your character levels up. Next up we have our skills. Fury of Blows, the Beer Ally and Shadowing Beyond are the best skills for our stealth build. The Flurry of Blows will grant lifesteal, making every hard-hitting attack heal you. You can also combine this with the Blood Magic from the Wizard Tree to gain Essence at the cost of life. This combo will allow you to free cast abilities consistently, while killing enemies and replenishing lost life. Then Beer Ally is the best defensive skill for us, because at rank 2 it will give us an AoE taunt when summoned. You could then use the beer preemptively or reactively to aggro attackers away from you. Just keep your distance by dodging the enemy at an angle, and aim for the headshots while the beer holds the aggro. Then Shadowing Beyond will grant us immediate stealth, and the godlike passive can be used regardless if you are stealth or by crouching, meaning that this skill can be used to one-shot enemies without using the tall grass. And additionally, you want to look for skills that increase critical hit chance, both damage and then even damage to unsuspected targets like the sniper, marksmanship and the critical strike. So now let's quickly take a look at our skill tree. The most important part of the early levels in Avowed is gaining access to skills that are necessary for the crowd control and stealth. The Tangle Foot will root targets, allowing you to keep your distance, while Shadowing Beyond will grant stealth on demand. Moreover, your essence and recovery are likely to be low, so therefore you need to rely on food and consumables for generation, rather than just spamming potions. Then in mid-levels you want to focus on passives and the Beer Ally skill. This ability will summon a beer with a rank 2, which will taunt enemies and hold aggro. At this point you can even drop K as a companion and use a more offensive one, or just maintain 2 tanks. However, the bear will create such a powerful distance that it's hard to pass up. Lastly, you can use the Blood Magic skill if you are healing with Gaiata. It allows you to spam abilities at the cost of health, so make sure that you always have regeneration food activated to counter the health depletion. And then finally, from level 21 and up, we want to focus on the Flurry of Blows. This ability is one of the most overpowered skills once you reach rank 2, which will grant us lifesteal with weapons. With rank 3, you will gain 50 seconds with a short cooldown, therefore you want to pre-buff every fight, using this before entering the stealth or initiating combat. The godlike abilities also have a buff skill, and both can be combined for insane one-shot damage. And lastly, don't forget that you need to take 3 points into the survivalist skill, because once unlocked you could then craft advanced food and buffs that drastically increase our survivability, damage and regeneration. Next we have gear. The best thing about equipment is that this is not required for our build to work. However, if you can get it, then you will only become more powerful. So for armor we're using the Concealer's Garb, which will give us plus 50% sneak attack damage. Then for hands we want the Gloves of the Straggler, which gives us plus 15% sneak attack damage. Then for boots we got the Concealer's Shoes for plus 2 dexterity. Then for trinket we got the Cartographer's Companion for easy plus 1 dexterity and plus 2 perception. And then for our first ring we want to use the Ring of the Pain Amplification for plus 15% critical damage, while for the second one we want the Ring of the Founder for plus 10% damage against targets with full HP. And then as far as weapons go, the main weapon for our build is of course the bow. Bow and dagger are the best choices for weapons for stealth, because bows have unique passives for attacking unaware enemies, while daggers give increased critical hit chance. Both of these weapons provide the most burst damage possible at range. The bow can also aim for weak points in stealth and capitalize on 2 forms of increasing damage without any passives or bonuses. However, in the early game, you can even wield a dual wield sword as they are more common. Moreover, if you are struggling with survivability in melee range, then feel free to equip a sword and a shield, until you get more passives and only then switch to the bow. Next we have companions. In my opinion, Gaiata and Marius are the best companions for a ranger build, because Gaiata can heal while Marius can root, discover treasure and burst single targets. Each one of these companions will bring unique abilities and backgrounds to your journey. And now finally, let's quickly go over the general gameplay and tips and tricks that will help you in your combat. So, the most important part of playing a stealth build in Avowed is triggering the stealth mechanic, by using the tall grass and crouching, or by activating the Shadowing Beyond skill. The tall grass won't be found in tight spaces. Moreover, you will must crouch many feet away from the target, so you will need to look for the eye above their head to determine if you are detected. You will then see a hidden UI element, which will mean that you will gain bonus damage when attacking. And then for melee range, you want to sneak up beyond to trigger the godlike passive Divine Thorn. And then at long ranges, you want to aim for weak points to do optimal damage. When it comes to survivability, once you are detected, then you want to summon the bear for AoV taunt. If you don't have the bear, then just dodge the flank or create space, while rooting the target with the Tanglefoot. You just don't want to rely on potions, because otherwise you will spend a lot of gold on them. And just overall, I recommend to prioritize upgrading your bow weapon with materials, and use melee weapon upgrades sparingly, as you should be playing at long ranges. You then also want to use light or medium armor, depending on the bonuses. Pretty much anything that will boost critical hit chance, critical damage, stealth damage or essence regeneration is great at first. And then at later levels you will want to practice pre-buffing with the flurry of blows, and take talents for more critical hit chance and the bow damage.